Hello everyone, welcome to the Cinéaste Cinema Club. I'm your host, Mickey P, 33, and this is a book club for cinephiles where we watch, discuss, and review all things movies. So if that's something you like to do, this is the show for you. Now, if this is your first time here, let me explain how things go. The show will consist of 2 segments. In the first part of the show, we do a mini spoiler-free review where we provide you with some interesting factoids about the film, and then we share our first impressions and overall thoughts and opinions. In part 2, we critique the film by going into the pros and cons based on our grading criteria, right over here, and then we share our final thoughts and rate the film. If you watch our live show on Twitch, we do a similar format, except at the end, we have our viewer interaction part, where you can discuss the movie in real time with me and share your thoughts and opinions on the film. Reviews will be posted to my YouTube channel every Friday at noon, and I'll be hosting the live show on my Twitch channel every Saturday at noon. If you want to know every time the review is out and when the live show starts, you can follow Mickey P33 on YouTube and Twitch. And if you want to join the Cinema Club and show your support, all you have to do is follow Cinéaste Cinema Club on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. There, you'll be able to suggest and vote on what movies we decide to watch, review, and discuss. We also keep you up to date with the latest movie news. And for you audio-only listeners, we're on Spotify and Google Podcasts and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Just search Cinéaste Cinema Club. Let me start by saying that I absolutely hate horror films, but for the month of October, I will be opening myself up to watching horror films just for the spooky season. Now, let's start off today's video, as we do with every video, with a non-spoiler review. This film was suggested to me by my good friend Dan, and today we are reviewing the supernatural horror film Insidious, directed by a master of the horror genre, James Wan. Insidious is about a family who looks to prevent evil spirits from trapping their comatose child in a realm called the Further. It was released back in 2011 and stars Rose Byrne, Patrick Wilson, and the godmother of horror, Lin Shaye. It was produced by Jason Blum of the horror film-centric famous company Blumhouse Productions. I'll start by saying that my thoughts on the film will be very limited when comparing to the very few scary movies that I have seen throughout the years. Now, even though I don't care for horror flicks, Insidious did things that I liked compared to other horror films that I've seen. Usually, with the supernatural horror films, we get a quick glimpse of the monster, or we get too much of the monster from the start. And this film finds a good balance between the two, and it had me shaking in my boots. Sorry, Halloween pun. I had to do it. James Wan works with his usual cast and crew to create his specific style of horror films. He works with his longtime partner, Lee Wanell, who wrote the screenplay for this film, and he also works with cinematographer John Leonetti, editor Kirk Morey, and composer Joseph Bishara, who actually also plays the malevolent entity in this film. Wan loves working with this crew so much that he, in the future, ends up working with all of them, if not a majority of them, on his future horror films like the Conjuring series. Wan created Insidious series after his success with the Saw series and found so much success that he started the Conjuring series that spun off a whole horror universe that he created that includes Annabelle, La Llorona, and The Nun, which have all found their own success and have been well liked by the general audience when it comes to horror films. And all this success is how Wan has become a master of horror, along with some of the greats like Wes Craven, George Romero, Sam Raimi, just to name a few. Now, I'm a person who hates jump scares. It's the thing I hate most about scary films because of all the anxiety and buildup and tension that I get in my body. But thankfully, this film is more about a good story with some jump scares, and not one of those films with consistent and constant jump scares throughout the whole film. So that was a plus for me. And as I said, the film is a pretty good story and is paced quite well. It does seem to drag during a couple scenes in Act 2, but other than that, it was very good. The editing and cinematography was well done as well. It uses some very effective cutting and camera shots and angles to really raise the tension of the story. The soundtrack was pretty good as well, from what I could hear. And I say that because when I watch scary movies, I put the volume pretty low because I always get anxious during the horror films, and the music and everything, just the build up just brings up my anxiety, and it's a lot for me. So unfortunately that hinders the score for sound editing a bit, because it's like, how can I score it well and accurately if I don't really hear it? Anyways, I assume that the score did well and helped build the tension in the story. Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson put on a great performance as the parents of the Lambert family that is being haunted in the film. They have to deal with a haunted house, a newborn baby, a son in a coma, and the normal additional stress of just moving. Rose Byrne, as the mother Renee, does such a good job of showing how all of the stresses that I mentioned get to her and her difficulty of dealing with it all. And the father, Josh, played by Patrick Wilson, plays a good character who loves his family but starts off being a bit skeptical when all this happens and addresses his stress in a different way. Overall, I actually enjoyed this film because it doesn't do scary things for scary sake. I would recommend this film to anyone who, 1, likes horror films, or 2, doesn't like horror films but is willing to give it a shot because it's more focused on a good story rather than being just scary just to scare the audience. So with that being said, I wouldn't go out of my way to rewatch this film, but because of the story and because of how the film ends, I'm actually going to watch the sequel, Insidious 2. Now, let's move into part 2, where we do a deep dive into what I think the film does well and what it could have improved on. So from here on out, we are headed into spoiler territory. Again, if you haven't seen the film yet, turn back now. Go watch it, and then come back to see my spoiler breakdown of the film. Let's begin. Alright, let's get into the spoilers of the story, and let's talk plot. So, as I mentioned in part 1, the story of the film was pretty good. You expect the house to be haunted, only to realize that after the family moves a second time, that the son is the one that is actually being haunted. But in a normal horror film, that's pretty much where the plot ends. But Wan does such a good job of giving us more. We find out that the son is haunted because he has a natural special ability where he can wander into an ethereal world, and this ability was passed down to him from his father. This leads me to my point about actually wanting to watch Insidious 2, because this film ends with a cliffhanger. At the end of the film, of course, we find out that the malicious spirit that has been trying to get the father since he was a boy finally succeeds. And then it looks like she's about to get the wife. So, I have to watch Insidious 2 now, right? Anyways, as I mentioned in part 1, Wan does a very good job of balancing teasing the monster and letting the audience get ample time into getting to see the monster in its full glory. I also mentioned in part 1 that Wan does a good job of balancing between teasing the monster and letting the audience get ample time to see the monster in its full glory. In this film, we get the lipstick-faced demon, and throughout Act 1, we don't even know that he's the reason for the supernatural events. We get some other spirits, but it isn't really until Act 2 where we get our first jump scare, showing the demon's face and pretty much teasing the demon. We then, of course, get a little more story about him and how the son has been seeing him in his visions, and then in Act 3, we get lots of screen time with the demon and his unsettling face and creature-like features. Again, I really like this because in other films, they tease you with a glimpse of the monster, and then that's pretty much it, and they let your imagination do the rest to keep you scared. And in other films, they show the monster really early and often and throughout the film, so much that after seeing it, you realize it isn't that scary. But Wan gives us enough screen time with the demon at the end while teasing us and letting our imaginations run wild in the middle of the film. And, as with every video, we finish each review with what I think is the most important criteria on whether a film is good or not. And that, of course, is the rewatchability factor. Again, as I said in part 1, I wouldn't go out of my way to give this film a second viewing, but I am definitely going to be watching the sequel, and with a little bit of persuasion, I wouldn't mind giving this film another watch. And with that being said, here are my final scores for each of the categories, which brings my total score for Insidious to a 6.8 out of 10. Again, I actually enjoyed the film, and Wan does a great job at providing an engaging story, and with the help of his crew, used all the aspects of the filmmaking process to help heighten the anxiety of the viewer and provide a more compelling story that brings the viewer into his world. And just like a mummy, that's gonna wrap up today's video review. Do you like horror films? And what are some of your favorite horror films? And also, which are the ones that have scared you the most? Let me know down in the comments below. Alright everyone, if you've made it this far, thank you all so much for watching and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me. Remember, you can join the Cinéaste Cinema Club and stay up to date with what movies we're reviewing. All you have to do is follow Cinéaste Cinema Club on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where you can suggest and vote on what movies we watch and stay informed with the latest movie news. Also, don't forget, come watch the reviews every Friday and Saturday on YouTube and twitch.tv at MickeyP33. There you can share your thoughts and discuss the film with me. And don't forget to listen to the audio-only podcast version on Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts by searching Cinéaste Cinema Club. Again, all social media links are shown throughout the video and are also in the description links below. Let me know what you liked or disliked about the show and how I can make it better. If you like the reviews, please share the show with your friends and give us a thumbs up. And subscribe to get more movie news. So tune in next week for another review by me, Mickey P. 33.